For decades, a former law enforcement officer named David Paulides has quietly documented something most people never think about. Across North America's national parks, forests, and protected wilderness areas, hundreds of people have vanished under circumstances that defy logic. Children disappear within seconds. Experienced hikers are never seen again. Search teams find no tracks, no signs of struggle, no clear explanation. These cases don't behave like normal missing person investigations. Paulides spent years collecting police reports, search and rescue records, and eyewitness accounts. What he found wasn't just tragedy, it was a pattern. Certain disappearances shared the same disturbing details. Again, and again, and again. And yet, these cases are rarely discussed publicly. At Silent Archive, we don't chase every disappearance. We don't sensationalize tragedy. Instead, we handpick the cases that feel wrong. The ones surrounded by silence. The ones that leave professionals unsettled. The ones with a strange, lingering fringe feeling, where the official explanation doesn't quite fit the facts. This is one of those stories. The boy was just 4 years old. His name was never released to the public. At that age, most children struggle to walk long distances. They trip, they get tired, they leave signs behind. And yet, somehow, this boy disappeared in seconds. And when he was found, he was miles away, uphill, across terrain that even trained adults struggled to cross. No footprints, no broken branches, no signs of how he got there. Just a quiet child, sitting where he shouldn't have been able to reach. It was early summer, 1969. The mountains were calm that morning, not silent, but balanced. Wind moved slowly through tall pine trees, creating a low, steady whisper that blended with distant birdsong. The air smelled of warm sap, crushed needles, and damp soil, still holding on to the coolness of the night. This wasn't deep wilderness. This wasn't an unmarked trail. It was a popular recreation area in the western United States. A place families trusted. A place children played. The boy walked slightly ahead of the adults. Never far. Always within sight. He was small, quiet, observant. The kind of child who stayed close, who watched instead of ran. The group stopped near a small clearing beside the trail. Backpacks were set down. A cooler was opened. The smell of food mixed with the forest air. Someone casually spoke the boy's name. He turned his head. One adult bent down to adjust a strap. Another turned to answer a question. It wasn't minutes. It wasn't even half a minute when they looked back. The boy was gone. At first, no one panicked. Someone laughed nervously and said he must have stepped behind a tree. Another adult called his name, louder. The forest answered with wind and birds. No footsteps, no rustling, no crying. They walked forward along the trail, then back, nothing. And slowly, something changed. That tight feeling in the chest, that instinctive sense that time suddenly mattered. Park rangers were contacted quickly. This wasn't delayed. This wasn't brushed aside. Search and rescue teams arrived and spread out almost immediately. Trained eyes scanned the ground. They expected to see something. Disturbed dirt, small footprints, broken twigs. But the trail looked untouched. It was as if the boy had simply stopped existing beyond a certain point. Beyond the trail, the landscape turned hostile. Dense brush, loose, jagged rocks, steep inclines that forced grown men to climb carefully. Searchers struggled to move quickly. Sweat mixed with the smell of pine and damp earth. The sun climbed, then slowly began to descend. Nothing about the terrain explained how a 4-year-old could have passed through it alone. Time stretched. Voices echoed through the trees, calling his name again and again. The forest absorbed the sound. Every passing minute increased the risk: dehydration, injury, exposure. But there was still no sign, and that silence unsettled the people searching more than anything else. Then, hours later, a voice broke through the radio static. They had found him, alive. But relief faded quickly when the location came through. He wasn't found a short distance from the trail. He wasn't hidden nearby. He was found several miles from where he vanished, uphill, across terrain that had already slowed trained searchers earlier that day. The exact distance was never officially stated. What mattered was this: the location was far enough that experienced adults struggled to reach it. And yet, a 4-year-old child had arrived there without leaving a single trace behind. When rescuers finally reached him, the boy was sitting quietly on the ground, not hiding, not crying, just sitting, as if waiting. There were no injuries, no torn clothing, no signs of panic. His feet were dirty, but unharmed. He should have been exhausted after covering that kind of distance. He wasn't. He should have been dehydrated. He wasn't. Some of the searchers later admitted that this calm disturbed them more than finding him injured would have, because nothing about the terrain explained how a 4-year-old could have reached that place on his own. When asked how he got there, the boy answered softly. He said a man had taken him, not angry, not rough, just tall, quiet. The man didn't speak, didn't struggle through the brush, didn't seem slowed by the terrain. He simply picked the boy up and walked. Then, at some point, he put the boy down and left. Authorities searched the area thoroughly. There were no adult footprints, no broken branches, no evidence of anyone else being there. There was no explanation that fit the physical evidence. Years later, when the boy was older, he was asked about the incident again. This time, the question wasn't where he had gone. It was how. He took a long time before answering. Then he said something quietly. "I didn't walk." He explained that the man who took him didn't move through the forest the way people normally do. There was no climbing, no pushing through brush, no effort. It felt like the ground didn't slow him down. And just like when he was 4 years old, he stopped talking. Search and rescue professionals recognize these details. They appear again and again in cases later examined in the missing 411. Children disappearing silently, found far away, often uphill, often calm, often mentioning someone who helped them, with no evidence left behind. Officially, the explanation was simple. The child wandered off, but no one who searched that day believed that explanation fully, because forests don't erase people, and 4-year-olds don't cross impossible terrain without leaving a trace. And sometimes, the most unsettling part of these stories isn't what we can't explain. It's how often the same impossible details appear, quietly, consistently, and are never spoken about again.